and welcome. Today we'll be diving into the world of short-term investing. I'm Molly, an event planner at SoFi, and I'm excited to introduce and chat with Certified Financial Planner and Senior Manager of Financial Planning at SoFi, Brian Walsh. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Brian, we know the investing world can be a little bit confusing and overwhelming. So let's start with defining what short-term investing even is.
Yeah, so that's a great first question, and I'm really glad we started with this. You know, at a high level, figuring out when your goal is going to happen and when you're actually going to use the money is one of the core aspects of figuring out how your money should be invested. Generally speaking, we kind of break it down into three buckets here at SoFi: short-term bucket, mid-term bucket, and long-term bucket. So that short-term bucket is going to be money that you're going to use within the next 3 years. The long-term bucket on the other end ends up being money you're going to use more than 7 years down the road. And then that midterm bucket ends up kind of being no man's land, where there's going to be 3 to 7 years, and that's when you're going to use the money. So it's really about figuring out when you're going to use the money and letting that drive some of the decisions on how you invest that money.
That's a really helpful overview. So I imagine most of us have some short-term and longer-term financial goals. Does that mean that they're competing with each other?
Yeah, another great question. And you know, everyone should have a short-term goal, and that's going to be having an emergency fund. And everyone's going to have a long-term goal, saving for retirement. There's a ton of different options that people have above and beyond that, and they will compete with each other. That's why I think it's so important, and we spend so much time trying to figure out the best use of your next dollar, because you're going to have different things competing for that next dollar. At a high level, we think having an emergency fund or enough cash set aside to cover the unexpected is one of the most important things that people can accomplish financially. Above and beyond that, then we start to stretch it out and think about longer term goals like paying down debt, saving for retirement, saving for kids' education, things like that.
Yeah, that way of thinking about it is really helpful. So now let's say we are committed to investing in the short term. What should we look out for regarding tax implications or additional fees?
Yeah, when you're thinking about short-term goals, at a high level, the priority of a short-term goal is going to be that the money is there when you need it. It's not going to be going up and down crazy amounts with the market, and it's not going to be locked up in any sort of qualified account or qualified plan. So generally speaking, from a tax perspective, we're not as concerned about tax efficiency for short-term goals because that money is going to be used in the next few years. On the flip side, long-term goals, we're certainly concerned about tax efficiency. So generally in the short term, we want to keep fees as low as possible, and we want to make sure that that money is in a stable place, like let's say a savings account, cash management account, money market fund, things like that.
That's really useful. Thanks, Brian. Now, I know I often hear the saying, high risk, high reward. Is that the same for short-term investing, or should I be putting my cash into something less volatile, like mutual funds or bonds?
So please do not take the high risk, high reward type of approach to short-term money. Like I just talked about, really that priority is going to be that the money is there when you need it. You're not going to knock the cover off the ball with every single dollar that you put to work. That dollar that you put to work for short-term goals is all about it's going to be there when you need it, whether it be buying a house, saving for emergency, things like that. Then when you start looking at that long-term money, we're investing for the future, 7+ years, maybe retirement. That's where we care about the balance decades from now, not days from now. So we're going to see more ups and downs, and over the long term, it's going to grow faster. But short term, it's all focused on that preservation and having that stability.
Okay, stability and preservation. Got it. Okay, so now that I am committed, I understand my risk and my potential reward. How should I go about putting together a strategy or budget? What should my next steps be?
Yeah, I think the first step to accomplishing any financial goal is going to be understanding your budget, because at the end of the day, the amount of money you have coming in compared to what's going out, whatever that gap is, so that surplus is going to be how much money you have to put to work towards any financial goal. It could be a short-term goal, it could be paying down debt, it could be retirement, whatever it may be. So the better handle you have on your cash flow, the more successful you're going to be in saving for your goals. On top of that, I think it's really important to automate the important. So anytime you have a goal, even if it's a short-term goal, automate those contributions so that way it's a habit without even thinking about it, and you'll set yourself up for success.
Awesome. I feel like we have a really solid plan now. I'm taking my mental notes. Thank you again to Brian for walking us through the wild world of short-term investing. Thank you to our SoFi members who are watching, and we hope to see you back at another financial fireside chat soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.